Good morning, everybody. John Sviokla here for GAI Insights with your Gen AI news briefing, rating your top news essential, important, or optional. We are with the core team here. We have Ankash Honda, Paul Byer, and myself. Get some interesting news today. And Ankash, why don't you start us off with the first one?
Sure, John. Just bringing up my screen. Okay, the first one that we have for today comes from Wall Street Journal, and it talks about why most companies shouldn't have an AI strategy.
Yeah, here we have an Irish academic, basically doing a short article. I really dislike articles like this. He's saying the obvious, which is something we pointed out in our WINS framework back in September of 2023, which is, look, AI is not as important to everybody. Obviously businesses that are more words, images, numbers, and sounds intensive, WINS intensive, are one and already digitized. Those are the ones that are going to get hit first. And he says, tautological things like AI isn't an island. Yeah, no technology is an island. Anyway, I'm definitely optional. I find articles like this annoying. They get good carriage because, they state, they go against a straw man that doesn't exist and, create an issue. Anyway, so optional for me. Hey, Ram, how are you? Good to have you.
Hey,
Paul, what do
good
you
morning.
think?
Morning, John. Morning. Kicking off the week with some snark. I love it, John. No, I agree. I found it an optional article that's not useful. I think it gives cover for companies that feel they're on their heels and they don't have a large digital component of the cost base. So optional.
Yeah. Ram, I was just saying I really don't like this first article, because because I mean, look, he's saying AI is not the same for everybody. Yeah, well, we said the same thing, and other people said it. We said the same thing, 18 months ago, and AI is not an island. Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we speak language too. I mean, come on. Whatever. So optional for me. You okay with optional?
Yeah, so just looking at it, I mean, I think the article itself, the title is different from what the article is basically communicating the message. Basically, article is communicating that, hey, as an enterprise, you need to have all the foundation necessary for you to implement the AI, and AI should be your overall strategy. It's just not an AI strategy. That's I mean, again, from the article itself is optional, but again, it's something that you have been talking about on this show since the beginning. That companies should have basically either own your intelligence approach, or anything. The companies must have their data strategy in place and their entire businesses should be ready. So we see some companies that have not invested in the past decade, like too much, kind of like struggling to figure out how to adapt AI. So, for example, like we've been talking to some smaller utility companies, right? They're not major utility companies, smaller utility companies who have not invested in last 5-10 years, right? So they still have uh, um, good old databases, good old like systems. Probably they didn't need too much. They didn't think that it was necessary to invest. Now suddenly, when they are thinking about leapfrogging into AI, there is a lot of work that needs to be done before they can like do this. So
Mm-hmm.
this could address the leaders in organizations like that where there is a where the technology has been like stagnant, but in general this is like an optional article.
All righty. As we were beating on the optional early on a Monday here. All right, optional next, Ankash.
Okay, the next comes from Financial Times and talks about how DeepSeek is focusing on research over revenue in contrast to Silicon Valley.
Yeah, what'd you think of this, Paul?
It's optional. I mean, it's inside baseball, parlor gossip. I think it's hard to really know what's going on in China.
it does go against the grain where OpenAI, to be successful, has to raise billions for all this training, and DeepSeek comes out of nowhere as a algorithmic invention or innovation, and uses supposedly much smaller things here. But I find it more probably the most interesting thing was that Tenet went with the Quinn model instead of DeepSeek. I thought that was the most interesting thing from that. Other than that, it's definitely optional. I mean, I do think the AI leaders need to just monitor what's going on in China, but optional article.
Okay, optional. Yeah, interesting. They seem to have a longer term perspective here. The billionaire owner, trying to get into the ecosystem. I agree with you, Paul. I think the ecosystem strategy from a national level is something to watch. Because they're certainly building up a whole cluster of intelligence and robotics that is going to be very powerful. And you never know, what the real payments and transfers of power and money are from the outside. Ram, you okay with an optional on this guy?
Yeah, it's definitely optional. The thing that I found interesting was, I think the DeepSeek is the side project for a hedge fund company, right? They are continuing to manage that approach instead of like going a pure raising money, or like going big, or like trying to generate revenue. But yeah, it's an optional thing.
But John, if I'm China though, I want both these Chinese-based companies to be successful. So I'm ensuring they get all the resources and help they can from a industrial strategy.
Yeah. I mean, we've done similar stuff, not as heavy-handed or not as opaque, but in terms of the U.S. is heck, the whole internet, right? It's a government investment. But anyway, yes. All right, optional. Next, Ankash.
Okay, the next one comes from TechCrunch, and it talks about Sesame, which is a startup behind the virtual assistant Maya. So they have released their base AI model, which powers Maya.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I'm going to give this an optional. If you have used this, it's amazing in terms of your ability to speak to it. Incredibly realistic. You can interrupt it. Voice is a huge issue, but the CSM-1B model, starts with the Meta, family, and then builds on that. So I was going to give this an optional. Fantastic technology. Everyday miracles. Paul, you good?
I am, and to me, John, this is a good example. I know in the Learning Lab tonight we're going to be talking about our favorite top tools. This is one that I've been trying to get to work into my personal workflow, and I forgot to post the bookmark it on my browser when it came out a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to do it after this here. But it is amazing technology, and it fits into the voice thing, which we've talked about repeatedly, but optional.
Ram, you good with optional?
I think I want to make a case for important.
Okay.
Primarily because voice is the new UX, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this voice side of things are still nascent compared to text-based or in general, like general UX. So, and Sesame has been one big breakthrough in terms of in terms of like the quality, and also now they are open sourcing it. It's something that enterprises need to start pay attention to and see how the UX starts playing an important role, and voice UX starts playing an important role, and what they can do with it. Not only that, the Sesame also opens up lot more. I would say, I don't know, opportunity. I want to call it opportunity, but lot more fraud based activity, right? So
Mhm.
because of the voice ability to manipulate voice, this has to be, and basically we just have to expect like a lot more fraudulent activity that would be going on, and not individuals and organizations would be impacted by this. So I think it's something that should be on the top of the mind to kind of like see, to have to start watching this space, if and see how things are evolving. So from that perspective, I feel that the leader should know about this.
Okay, important, especially given the fact that it's so easy to, as it says here, it just takes a few minutes to sample somebody's voice and create a fake voice that's very believable. Um, so yeah, I hear you. I just think that this whole thing about deep fake and the ability to sample reality and so forth, that to me is a baseline, and I didn't see a whole lot more. This is the release of the model. Not a lot more insight here in terms of what Sesame's doing. So um, on balance, I think I'm going to leave it as an optional, and let's get on to the next one on Patronus.
Fair enough.
Okay, the next one comes from Petronas and it talks about their judge image, which wants to keep AI honest, and Etsy is already using it.
Yeah. Two points in here I'd like to highlight, and then hand it over to you, Ram, our for our rating. The one point is they say that look, you should have a separate technology that you buy, which judges the quality of your output, and especially this is a multimodal model. So Etsy is in there using it because obviously the Etsy content is multimodal. And then the other thing I thought was interesting is that they also reinforce something that we believe in, which is that the large language wrappers around large language models, if they're well created, are actually going to have sustainable advantage. And if there's a difficulty in sustainable advantage, it might be at the large model level, which is, those seem to be getting more commoditized, and the wrappers may in fact be the distinct thing. But anyway, so those 2 points. Ram, what do you think? Optional, important, essential?
Uh, when I read the article, one angle, it's a product announcement, and they just keep talking about the product itself. But on the other hand, the concept of uh, evaluating, basically having like a completely new, different tool or different mechanism to evaluate is an important concept, right? How do you keep your applications or your LLMs like honest? So this is a good, interesting use case to watch out for. Unfortunately, they did not give too much detail of how they are implementing. So from that standpoint, it's optional, but it's an interesting read. I don't. That's to kind of like, how do you design your implementations, like, so that from that standpoint it could be important, but I don't know. It's somewhere in between.
Okay, I'm headed for optional in this one. Paul, where are you?
Optional as well. I mean, I think we have talked repeatedly in past shows about LLM as a judge. I know we had a vendor last week that focused on it as well. So it's a part of that trend, but optional.
All right, optional it is. So far, we got a no-hitter going here. Ankaj, next.
Okay, the next one again about deepfakes. So it talks about the AI ground war against celebrity deepfakes.
Yeah, one of the things in here that was I found amazing is how much money people will just give to try to help celebrities. I mean, it's like, what is it? I mean, I'm kind of, I won't go so far as to say it's a Darwin Award, the selection of the species here. What do you think, Paul?
I had this as important. I think we've also talked in the past, so we can, at least I view that CISOs and others folks are underappreciating the security risk. And we've talked for consumer brands, a brand risk. I think this is easy to understand and specific example of how the deep fakes continue to be a very real impact, not only just on this in this celebrity thing here, but for fraud and social engineering for everything else. So I had as important. I think it's also something that's easy to understand for the internal organization. So if I channel my inner Tim Andrews, our colleague, who says one of the things AI leaders should have is good articles at their fingertips to help other people understand when they make a case or when they're doing a budget ask. I think this fits in there. So important.
All right, so we're breaking the no hitter here. We're going to get a person on base. What do you think here, Ram?
Yeah, I think from a CSO perspective, it's important. So they talk about few cases. Like, so one interesting thing was from Tbilisi, Georgia. They have a completely fabricated news reports to promote crypto, and they swindle like $35 million. So yeah, so it's an important article to kind of pay attention to get like a sense of how sophisticated uh, the whole uh, I don't know, the deepfakes in general, fraud through AI is increasing. So it's an important article to pay attention to. And on the other hand, this is also a product promotion. They talk about like Loti systems that scans 100 million images and videos daily, like startup. So it's also a product promotion, but in general, it's an important topic to pay attention to.
All right, important it is. We broke the no hitter. Last no hitter was September 4th, 2024, by the Chicago Cubs. All right, still stands. All right, Akash, next one.
Okay.
Last one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the last one comes from Lux Capital, and it talks about navigating AI's frontier in 2025.
Yeah, I think this makes an argument that agents aren't quite there yet. I was going to give this an optional. Again, this is this makes an important but kind of obvious point, which is that when agents go out and try to make you a reservation, for example, it doesn't have a lot of the specifics and the preferences, and the author does the old mathematics around if you have a multi-step process and the quality of each of those processes is 99%, depending upon how many iterations you have, you can get down to a very poor process, 60% or less, very quickly. I forget what the exponential is, but I think it's around 10 or 12 steps. You end up down at 60%. So I think kind of obvious. I think for my money, the agent-based things are interesting from a development standpoint and value standpoint, but also I think that this article underplays the number of very standard transactions that do happen, and also the care with which individual companies are starting to put their validation inside. We work with a couple of companies that use agents inside big complex organizations, and they spend a lot of time at each step of the process figuring out what level of quality do they need to then take action on the back of that. And the big part of that also is the creation of good API governance and so forth, because inside the enterprise, that's how they're getting access to this stuff. So anyway, optional. I think it misses the point on what's really happening in the marketplace, and I think it makes a pretty, obvious thing, which is to say, agents are still in development. What do you think here, Ram? You go with optional?
So, I think last time when I was on the show, Adam made a point on a similar article, basically saying that just because you are in it doesn't mean the leaders out there know. So, even though this looks like very obvious for us, uh, the thing that I like about it is it basically curates the 5 different aspects in the AI strategy, right? So data curation, importance of evals, scaffolding systems, user experience is the mode, build multimodality, right? So these are the concepts that need to be discussed as these AI strategy and AI systems are built. Especially leaders have to bring these ideas and questions to the table. From that standpoint, I would even though like it's commonplace and we know it, I think we need to continue to reinforce, right? You have to keep repeating the message. So I think this is one article which repeats the message, and from that standpoint, I would say it's important for leaders to just pay attention to and read this.
All right, Paul, Ram's trying to save us from the expert's curse, assuming that everybody knows what we know.
Sure, I can support that, John. I think Sheesh has got optional. He's commenting here, Ram. It's interesting, and I think there's a lot of these articles that I think are very high level and talk about the whole process. I think, Jonathan, you and I have been talking for a long time about breaking it down to sub processes and dealing with each sub process. What's the risk and who's leading, and the robots or the humans, and that's why the cumulative errors aren't adding up when you're breaking it down to that level here.
There's the statistical assumption that they're compounding has a lot to do with how you do truth maintenance, right? So whatever, and so forth. I don't know, Ram. Hope you're not offended here. I'm going to go for the optional thing here. Ankash, could you get us ready for the final tote? And Paul, you want to tell us about the Learning Lab tonight?
Yeah, so our weekly Learning Lab, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 Pacific. Tonight, we're having a fun kind of a group discussion on what are your 2 indispensable AI tools today, and what are 2 you can't live without. So we're going to have people present 3 or 4 minutes each the tool, and if I can figure out the polling thing in Zoom, we may even do a poll. But those are the tonight. So join us, and you go to meetup.com and look up GAI Insights Learning Lab to get the link.
Great. Awesome. Excellent. Well, I haven't got any announcements. Ram, great to have you. Ankash, as usual, thanks for the help. Let's see here. We've got our tote board. We only have one important inside the AI ground war against celebrity deepfakes. All the rest optional. Easy Monday, and have a great week. And of course, happy St. Patrick's Day. I can't believe I'm not wearing anything green. My relatives would have my head for that. So anyway, it's great seeing you all. Thanks, Ram, and look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow morning. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Good morning.
Thanks.